Welcome back to CivilNet. We are continuing our live broadcast of the electric Yerevan, protest that has been taking place in the capital of the Republic of Armenia for the past 10 days. Now joining me is a very good friend of CivilNet, actress and social activist Arsinee Khanjian. Arsinee, thank you for joining us. You have been in Armenia for the past number of days, filming a movie in the village of Khachik, which is near the Armenia-Nakhichevan border, a film with Serge Avedikian, a French-Armenian, very well-known director. And even though you were in a remote village, somewhere near the border, you were following what has been taking place here in Yerevan. Tell me what, and knowing you, I'm sure that your blood was boiling and you wanted to be here. You were here today walking around, seeing what's taking place. What are your impressions?
Well, I guess my impressions were sort of already developing as I was following the whole situation taking shape, form, and creating this incredible energy and dynamic right now in Yerevan. What was really interesting, it was, as you said, to be that far away, basically at the border of Armenia with Nakhichevan, which is a very strategically significant border, where there is this small village of Khachik, but actually the place may be small, but the awareness is not that small. Because there are everyday realities that the village people and the people in that region have to deal with. And in a way, it was a very interesting reflection for me to understand what was going on in Yerevan, and it didn't seem that far away. The truth is that the country is at a time and in a place where the question of who's governing this country and how it's being governed is being asked all across the board. I understand that it's the electricity hike issue, the price of it, that is right now triggering this gathering and this very significant demonstration in the heart of Yerevan. But I guess from talking to the villagers, talking to the people, I'm realizing that there is an unease in the country, generally speaking. We know from the diaspora that the economic situation is such that the country is being emptied from its youth, but also from its population in general. But the youth is the most significant one in terms of natural resources. And in a way, I think what is going on in Yerevan is the real feeling of the people. I think there is an exhaustion of having to wait and expect a kind of attention that every state and every government should provide to its people. And now we're realizing that there is no real synchronicity in terms of what the people's need is and what the government is prioritizing in terms of its way of addressing.
Yeah, there's. I think that Electric Yerevan has really underscored the very deep distrust that citizens of Armenia have towards their government. It's about the corruption, it's about the graft, it's about the fact that they don't engage with the citizens, that they're really so disassociated from the reality on the ground. And I think that's part of what has triggered it. And you're right, it is the electricity, but there is so much more happening with this movement. You know, Arsinee, I think that you were probably an activist in the womb, and you've always been very active and very vocal about a variety of issues. And you've also been vocal about Armenia's government or the way they govern. What is it that you think that that this protest, do you think, and I know this is an unfair question and it's making assumptions, but you know, that's my job sometimes to ask difficult questions or impossible questions. Do you think that this kinds of protests where they say that we're a social movement, we are not political, by saying that, will they be able to impact any kind of change in the decision, let's say, for example?
Yes, absolutely. I believe in that because I believe in the proposition, if they choose to call this protest a social protest and not a political one, I can see the perspective on this because actually the social movement is much more significant in a way because it is about a larger number of concerned citizens as opposed to political movement which may be biased by a certain ideology or belief system. So in a way I'm quite satisfied with that perspective on it. But I would say that I understand that the same way as I did hear that many of my colleagues in the field of culture, actors, etc. Have been participating. Right. It's the same thing in a way to say the artists, the cultural practitioner are not politicians or political necessary activists, but they are social activists, and I think art creation is the very place where ideas are being searched and trying to see how that culture is becoming sort of in sync with its reality on everyday basis. I think that's what the artist does. So I like, in a way, that very interesting distinction. And also it keeps away all the rumors and constructs of creating unfounded and biased sort of political arguments, which puts the government then corners the government in its own game in that sense. So it is a very intelligent and smart, I think, and honest as well.
Sure,
I think it's a very
honest,
sincere movement in that sense. So the only thing I hope for is that this social engagement and concern is going to keep its own momentum because it's easier to have a political purpose and agenda and fight than in a way than when we say it's a social issue, because it seems like it's something over time and it can be sort of much more fluid. I think it does need a momentum. It looks like the momentum is certainly here right now, and all I hope is that it continues.
Yeah, it does seem to have popular support. I think it has changed the narrative in Armenia. I think it has shattered that wall of silence or that stereotype that Armenians can take unlimited amount of abuse from the authorities. And I think that the youth have really helped the older generation see that, you know what, coming together, having a platform, having defined what it is that we want to do, can really impact, even though they don't want to be political, but impacts policy, impacts the way government runs, impacts the way they write their policy and the decisions that they are making that impact all of our lives as citizens in Armenia.
Absolutely, and at a time where we do have a very significant problem in the country, and this is a concern I should assume it should be concern for the state, but also it's a concern for the entire nation, Armenian nation in that sense, is that there is an incredible exodus that is happening, and that exodus is taking some of our finest resources, our human resources, specifically the youth. So in a way to see that this particular movement, this social movement, is coming from the youth.
And empowering them.
And therefore empowering them. Today as I went on Baghramyan, I was wondering if had the country not let this leading sort of happen, if there would not have been more young generations here participating. But then again I thought, well, if they were still in the country, maybe that would have been an indication that things are much better. And therefore maybe what we have to see, really observe, is that the ones who are choosing to stay here are really finally feeling that they should not be led necessarily, they should not be waiting for laws and however regulations are running the infrastructure of the society economically, politically and otherwise are in the hands of a few, because the truth is this is an oligarchy. I mean, it's the quintessential example and model of an oligarchy that is in a way not even having the sort of wisdom to sort of pretend some kind of connection. I think, as you said earlier, there is an isolation on behalf of the state. They seem to be believing that by show of force and police presence and so on, they can subjugate the ideas and the emotions of the people. I have a feeling that they're really on the wrong track because actually the youth that has remained in the country does care about this country very much, and it is their future in a way. So I think the right complaint is being presented to the government. If they choose to ignore it, it wouldn't be neither the first time nor perhaps the last time, neither in Armenia nor elsewhere. But I think it would be really a big responsibility and also a moral issue for this particular state to be treating its people, his own people, without significant respect and address of what needs to be negotiated. Right. There is a lot to be negotiated. It's not about this electricity hike. It's not. I think it has been a number of years that so many examples have been triggering unrest and mistrust. The country in general. I mean, what does it mean to feel a Canadian, an American, an Armenian, a Russian or a French? I think it's when you feel that you have something to say about your own environment. It looks like Armenians don't have anything to say about their own environment because all resources or interests of the country are now sold off completely. I don't know any other country, unless it is a really third world colonial history sort of based country, to have this kind of situation. We do have resources. Why our resources are not being run to the best of our knowledge by our people? It is inexplicable to me that this kind of governance wants legitimacy to say that they're really doing everything for the interest of Armenia. Right. This doesn't work.
Doesn't. And as Electric Yerevan has shown, it isn't working. So, Arsinee, thank you for your insights. Thank you for always being a generous guest with us and for all the work that you do. So thank you. I'd like to remind our viewers that my guest was actress and social activist Arsinee Khanjian. We are now going to show you a video that I prepared last night. It's called Calm Before the Storm. Just to give a quick recap of what happened, on June 27th, President Serge Sarkisyan met with his economic advisors to come to some kind of solution or resolution to the impasse that had been created as Armenian protesters at the Electric Yerevan protests had basically shut down a major strategic thoroughfare in the capital of the city. So the president said that the government would initiate an international audit, and it would, for the time being, until that audit is conducted, that it would bear the burden, shoulder the burden of the increase in the electric prices. Now, this was seen by the government, by authorities, by police as a concession, and they expected that protesters would also see it as a concession. Yesterday, Vaghinak Shushanyan, who was one of the leaders or one of the organizers of the No to Plunder civic initiative, addressed the crowd and said that, you know, this is really not acceptable for us because basically while as consumers they would not be paying directly for the electricity rate, it would come from their pockets anyway, because it would have to come from the government budget, or the government would have to take out a loan to pay for it. So yesterday police issued a warning to clear Baghramyan Avenue. So here in this video we give sort of a recap of what took place yesterday. It's called Calm Before the Storm.